I'm going to share with you the build-to-rent strategy that nobody is talking about but is more lucrative. It has a lot more profitability and has a lot more bandwidth for long-term ease than anything else that you're doing right now. Now, instead of going in, most traditionally, people will go in and just buy an old house in any given area of town to be able to pick up and rent, do short-term rentals or long-term rentals on. Why not go into a more developing area that's newer, that has newer amenities, less variables for broken toilets, sinks, and capital expenses, and just go in and enjoy the leisure of renting that property? But how do you get into this property with enough equity where you can actually turn a profit is the biggest question. So there's two ways to do this. I'm going to share both with you. I'm going to share with you how you go in and stabilize these assets for profitability, and then how you utilize the leverage out of these assets to continue to grow and leverage more builds to take advantage of rentals. Look it, when we come in, we buy a piece of land. Let's say we go into a developing neighborhood where there's new restaurants, new gas stations, new amenities, new churches, new schools, all right around you, along with new homes, new homeowners, and the diversification of people that are coming in. When you come in and you do this, let's say for sake of example, we go in, we buy a piece of land, and let's say that land costs us $80,000 to be able to buy. We're not going to go in and buy in the most affluent areas, but we're not going to go and buy in bad areas either, because we want people to want to live here. We want them to go to the schools here. We want to be able to take advantage of all of the new amenities without sinking somebody in a high-end custom home. So we want to be able to build in the upper median or median sector. We want a nice area. So if we go in, let's say theoretically, we spend $80,000 on the land. Let's say that the resale value is about $170 per square foot, okay? Now, we build what people want, not what they need. We go in, we build this nice little rental home that's 2,300 square feet. So if we take a 2,300 square foot home, take 2,300 square feet, $270 a square foot. Sorry, we're gonna take $270 a square foot. We go in, we're gonna take that at $270 a square foot. So 270 times 2,300, that's a resale value of $621,000, okay? Now, this is all based on comps, okay? Now, our intent is to hold this asset. How do we build this asset? Now, we also know that we're not in our upper middle class area, which we typically underwrite at between 165 and 170 a square foot to build. Because when we go in and we build at a 165 to 170 a square foot build, we're gonna make usually 6 figures in income. These don't have that type of profitability, because these homes are typically in the lower upper middle class or the upper level of the middle class. So we have this sector here where we're going into nicer areas that are desirable for families and kids to live, go to school, eat, work, and play. And so when we go into these areas, we know we have a nice home, 621. We know that this home is not a luxury custom home. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go in and we're gonna build this house. But we know that the build cost is gonna need to be someplace right around the national average. National average is $141 a square foot. Let's say that we have to hire a contractor, and let's say that we're gonna land up spending $145 a square foot to build out this asset. So if we go in at $145 per square foot times 2,300, we know that our equivalence is 2,300 times $145. That's going to be a build cost of $333,000. So we're going to say our build cost is equivalent to $333K. Now, we have no closing costs, we have no resale costs, because this is an asset that we're going to rent. This is the build to rent strategy most people aren't talking about. And so when we go in, we have no closing costs, but we are going to have some debt service costs to build this property. We're going to have about $15,000 in debt service. We go in, we have about 15, let's call it 20K in debt service. Now, all in, we have 333 plus we have 80,000 plus we have 20,000. We're gonna have 433,500 total cost. Now, provided we go in, we have a $621,000 asset. You can leave your equity in this asset. If you leave your equity in this asset, this is your cash flow for rents. So we go in, guys, we wanna rent this house. Now, I just asked Google, what is the national average for rents for a 2,300 square foot house in a median to upper median suburban area across the United States? According to Google, the average median rent is $2,500 to $4,000 per month, with an exact price dependent heavily on location and specific property features, okay? Now, we have a brand new home, guys, in a nice area. I'm building out the demographics and the business model for you. So if we go in and we take an average of $2,500 to $4,000, so we take $2,500 plus $4,000 divided by 2, that's gonna be $3,250 a month per rent. That's all in. So the average rent is $3,250 per month for rent, okay, on this house. Now, we go in, our mortgage, if we don't take any equity out and we just leave the $433,000, because the house is worth $621, right? So we have $621 minus $433,500 500. That means we have $187,500 in equity, okay? Now, we collateralize that equity, we go out, we get a loan for this amount right here. Let's say that our lending, we buy down our rate. You're gonna hold this long term, you do not wanna be in a high interest rate. You wanna be able to go in and buy down your rate. So if you spend a few $1,000s buying down your rate, it might cost you like $8,000 to buy down your rate. So if you add an extra 8, 9, let's call it $10,000 to buy down your rate. Now, that means you're gonna be at $443,500. Okay, but we buy down our rate to a 5% interest rate. So now we're sitting at a 5% interest rate, okay? And we have 443,000 times, so 443, because we got to buy down 5%. That's 22,175 per year divided by 12. That's a total of $1,848 per month is what your interest payment is, okay? This is your cost. Now, you probably don't have P&I insurance because you did an 80% loan to value. You actually kept your equity in here, so you have larger than a 20% loan to value on it. So now you don't have any P&I insurance. And so if you save your payment and interest insurance, now you're at $850 a month. So ladies and gentlemen, you rent this house on average for $3,250 a month. Your cost in is $1,848 a month. We take $3,250 minus $1,848. That's going to be a net profit of $1,402. You still have property insurance. You still have property taxes. By the time you do that, let's say you take an even split on that of about $700 a month, you're making about $700 per month net. You got to save this for a rainy day. The goal is to get up to 60 units, okay? Whether you do that on single family homes or whether you do that in one complex, you know, but if you do 700 times 60, okay, now you're making $42,000 a month times 12, that's a total of $500,000 a year. Okay, that's a great way to retire. But I'll tell you that is step by step. The build to rent model is a great model. And if you want to come in and hold $187,000 in equity, you're going to be able to put that to your bottom line. Or you can go in and take 80% out. You take $621,000 times 0.80. That's $496,000. We subtract that from the 433. So minus 433,500. You take $63,000 of your own money back out of that asset. You utilize the asset, you no money into the asset. Now you take out what's called a cash out refi and you put $63,000 back to work, okay? Now, when we go in and do that, that's going to increase your payments to just over $2,000 a month. So after you pay property insurance and everything, you're probably only making about $500 per month in rent. But what's cool is you can depreciate this asset and you could actually cost segregate it, and you have the rental income where you're making an extra $500. The asset pays for itself, and you have $63,000 to put to work to go to build number 2 or number 3. Ladies and gentlemen, the build to rent strategy has a lot more lucrative nature to it because you have tools and resources you can utilize that you wouldn't otherwise have by buying a normal rental home. Because the chances of you going in and having $187,000 in equity in any home in this current state of the market is slim to almost zero. And so to be able to come in and build equity of $187,500, you can sell the property, you can hold the property, you can short-term rent it, you can long-term rent it. It doesn't matter. But when you can go in and in less than 6 months, turnkey, increase your net worth by over $187,000, that is a win-win all the way from here to the bank. And so ladies and gentlemen, pay attention to the buy, build, rent strategy, because when you go in and you buy, you build, you rent, your equity standpoint gives you leverage to continue growing and building upon the base of your net worth to always go out and compound your financial and long-term success. For more content just like this, more strategies, hacks on how you take real estate to compound your financial success and ultimately profit long-term, click and subscribe to our YouTube channel, smash that thumbs up button, and don't forget to leave your comments below. Let me know if you're buying, let me know if you're building, let me know if you're renting or you're selling, and what your long-term goals are in the real estate investment space so we can better help you, serve you, and help you profit long-term. Until next time, keep watching, God bless, and go out and keep compounding your success.